Hey everyone. Yeah, I thought I'd do this because, well, first of all, I want to redo something, hopefully not to get it into two parts, but I also wanted to do this because I just recently found out something that I think a lot of you may know about already, if not. And as you can see, what I'm surrounded by here kind of gives you a clue of what I'm going to talk about. And that is the near 20-year history as a whole of the entire Yu-Gi-Oh franchise, as well as we're going to look at the 15 years that really put Yu-Gi-Oh on the map from Japan and here in the U.S. as well as from around the world. And I'll say this, when I got first introduced to Yu-Gi-Oh from my own personal experience, I was living in Kansas. I think I was in my third year living on my own, and I think about my third year living on my own, and suddenly I started hearing people talk about this show, and I was back and forth with jobs at the time. I was working at Burger King around the time frame, and one of the managers we had was a Yu-Gi-Oh guy, was a Yu-Gi-Oh fan. In fact, I even dueled him one time and lost my Dust Tornado to him, but I was able to get another one. But the reason I say I lost it to him because that was actually my first Dust Tornado card. But like I said, I was able to get it back from him. Not back from him, but I was able to get another one down the line. Uh, but like I said, that was the first time I heard about it. And I was like, well, what is this? Because the only other card game I knew of at the time was Pokemon. So I really didn't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh until I started hearing people talk about it, and lo and behold, I heard that not only was the game out, but there was a show that obviously you could tell was from Japan. So I watched the show on 4Kids and actually enjoyed it. And by watching the show a little bit, it started to get me more interested in the card game itself to the point that it became one of the things that I collect even to this day. Um, and let me adjust that a little bit. There we go. And basically, it was something that I always just something I love to do, love to collect on the side. And when I first started, and I will say this, when I dueled against my, I guess you could say my shift manager at Burger King that one time, it was my first actual duel. And there was several times because I lived right across from a Hastings. Not really right across. But I was kind of like, here was my apartments, and then all I'd have to do is come through a parking lot, which was right in the back of my apartments, walk past I think an Uno Chicago to the sidewalk, walk down the sidewalk, and go across the street, e- either this way or this way, and then go across the street again. Well, basically, I'd have to do it both ways anyway, and I'd end up at the Hastings that was located near my house. I was basically like I am now here. I was basically in walking distance of of my job and several jobs that I would have, as well as I'd be in walking distance of you know you know several other places like the movie theaters, things like that. And I always was contemplating should I do participate in a duel or not, and because they always had little tournaments going on. In fact, I remember walking into Hastings a few times, and they would have tournaments going on, and you could tell they were Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments. In fact, I remember there was one person kind of disguised themselves, kind of had this like black, kind of like Grim Reaper, kind of like coat on or something like that, or a costume on, and he was dueling. And that's how a lot of people dueled at the time, even to this day. They would disguise themselves so that you really wouldn't know who was who underneath the costume until probably later on when and if they ever want to reveal themselves. So anyway, I got into that, and like I say, being in walking distance of a lot of things. I mean, I was in walking distance of like you say, the theaters, the Walmart, the Target, the Targets. I think even before it went out of business, I was in walking distance of a Kmart. Just in walking distance of a lot of places. And I would go to Walmart, I would go to Target, and I would look up and see if I could find some Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I'd even go to, like I say, to the Hastings over there and get some Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Just collect here and there. And then as I was living in Lawrence and all that, I'd walk around, and I discovered some areas, some card shops, comic shops, basically, that also sold Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I would buy some there. I'd buy some Yu-Gi-Oh cards there. And so basically, I was just really building my collection from the ground up, if you will. In fact, I have a very small album, and I'll probably show you that in a video showing off my Yu-Gi-Oh collection in 1080 high def, if you will. But I just remember my first deck that I had was a Yu-Gi-Oh starter deck, of course, and I also got this album, the Yu-Gi-Oh album. It was like a small album, and I had all the stuff I needed in there to start off. And ironically, when I would go to all these other areas, and I think Hastings even did it, and like I said, all these other comic shops and stuff would do it. I would end up buying, and this is the honest truth, because I know I'm not the only one that's experienced this. I would end up buying the Japanese versions of these cards, and these would be at the comic shops on Mass Street in Lawrence, Kansas. I would end up buying the Japanese versions of the cards. I think I bought the Merrick version, the Merrick starter deck out of that, and just a few others, and it was like, whoa, I didn't expect this. This is really cool. And I did do all the other starter decks, especially when they were getting like into the box kind of deal, like from Joey's to Kaiba's to just name it. I was collecting them, and then like I said, I would go and collect individual cards, and then I would go online because I found out there were other places online that sold the cards that I couldn't get anywhere else. In fact, there was a place in I think it was Overland Park, Kansas, and I was still living there. They were selling cards that I could order online, and I think it was like Collector's Cash or something like that. And I still order from them every now and then if I feel like it, if I can't find anything else. But I would order cards from them because they would have cards I wouldn't be able to get normally because you would have to be very lucky to get a deck or a pack of cards or something like that that would have the cards you were looking for. So anyway, I did that, and then in 2004, of course, this movie was released in the theaters, and I think this was like when Yu-Gi-Oh was going into it had just ended its second season. It was just it had just ended its second season, and I remember they were advertising this not just during the Kids W Saturday morning block, but they were also advertising it, um, you know, commercially as well. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to find the time to go and see the movie at the theaters. So I think I had a day off on a Saturday. I went and saw the movie, and I saw the movie. I got, I think, the Blue Eye Shining Dragon out of it, and then later on, I went and I ordered or I bought because I think honestly afterwards, I went right across the street to Walmart, I believe, and this is before I worked with them, and I bought I think the movie premiere deck over there because that was being sold at the same time. So I bought the movie premiere deck, and I ended up getting a lot of good cards out of that. So I was really into Yu-Gi-Oh from that time forward, and I'm still into it at times. I mean, I was just finished watching a little bit of the rest of this, both in English and Japanese. So, I still get a kick out of it. I still get the adrenaline surge and all that. So it's really fun. It's a really, just a really fun franchise to be a fan of. But when I was also living in Kansas, and I still look it up to this day, I discovered that just like with any anime out there that comes over from Japan or any animation that may come over from another country, Yu-Gi-Oh was given the American treatment. In other words, it was given the um, it was given the cutting room floor treatment by 4Kids. And from what I understood, 4Kids, basically looking into it a lot, uh, did in the eyes of some, if not a lot of fans, and not just Yu-Gi-Oh fans, but anime fans and animation fans, did probably the worst editing and cutting you could think of and altering that you can think of for any anime series. Now they said basically like the first season was like okay, there was a few things here and there, didn't really make sense and all that, because I mean it's like they would point out like there was this one scene where two of Pegasus's men uh, barged into Kaiba's office and were pointing right at him like this, and it's like okay, are they just pointing, saying hey you come with me? They say like hey you come with me, and then later on you find out it's not a point, they're actually holding guns. So there was stuff like that, and there were some edits and alterations that I think anybody could understand. 4Kids doing because it's going to be because the show basically here in the U.S. was being presented on Saturday mornings as well as I think still on weekday afternoons. So you had to kind of change things around so it wouldn't be too violent. Well, it was violent and everything, but it wouldn't be so to the point that it would be the kind of show you would have to show in prime time, if not as part of the Adult Swim Toonami block, if you know what I'm saying. But there was a lot of stuff. I mean, you go to I think it was like u-yjo.net or something like that. You go there and you see a lot throughout all the seasons of everything that was changed, altered, from season to season to season. And again, you can understand possibly why they did some of it. And you can also look at it and say, well, why did they cut that out? There's nothing offensive there. There's no real reason for that. So there were those kind of situations that happened. But it wasn't just that either. I also, as a fan, you also find out. In fact, I found this out too, and I had to rediscover it recently. That they actually took, I think what was it, season two, I believe, season two, which was mostly the Merrick saga, the Battle City Merrick saga, whatever, and they switched that thing all around. They switched the storyline all around. I mean, it wasn't, because in Japan, the Japanese version was totally different, if not darker. Here, they changed it up to be like, oh, this guy wants to take over the world deal. And it's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Some people might ask, well, why would they do that? And again, if you're a parent, you can understand, oh, I see why they did it. But, those were just some of the things that some fans didn't like and kind of understood, but weren't really happy about that 4Kids did. But it seems that, despite, how you look at it and tolerate it, the show still succeeded. It did its job. It sold people on the card game. It told great stories no matter which version you looked at. It got you hooked. And it continued hooking you even through its spin-offs like GX and 5Ds and ZXL and now the other one which is AVCV or something like that. It did all that. It still kept you hooked. It still kept your interest. But I'm assuming, in my opinion, that one of the reasons 4Kids lost the license wasn't just because of what people reported, and that was them doing some dealings behind the scenes without what was it, AKR or something like that. I can't think of the company right now. Knowing basically the creators. Hold on for a sec.